Welcome back to Investing Talk Podcast. Today we're tackling a story that honestly feels a bit out of nowhere. It's this really unexpected collision between, the high-speed world of crypto and, well, theme park souvenirs.
Yeah, you heard that right. We're looking at a company listed on Nasdaq, SRM Entertainment, known mostly for making toys and merchandise for places like Disney and Universal.
Right. And connecting them with a major player in crypto, Justin Sun, the founder of Tron,
Yeah.
it's definitely a head-scratcher at first glance.
It absolutely is. So we're going to try and unpack the news that links them, figure out the mechanics of what's actually happening here.
And explore what it might signal, not just for them, but maybe for these blurring lines between traditional business and blockchain tech.
Our goal is really to cut through the, let's say, the confusion and understand this convergence. What's it mean for the companies, for Tron? And what's it tell us, if anything, about where things might be headed?
We're going to try and make sense of this pretty unusual picture. And hey, while we get into it, if you find this kind of analysis valuable, please do hit that subscribe button, like the video, leave a comment, let us know your thoughts. And maybe consider buying us a coffee if you feel like it. Your support really helps us keep doing this.
Okay, so let's start with maybe the more traditional side of things first. SRM Entertainment. Who are they exactly? What's their main business?
So SRM Entertainment, they're listed on Nasdaq. Their core business, historically, has been developing and manufacturing toys, souvenirs, custom merchandise.
For theme parks, right.
Yeah, exactly. For the big ones, globally, think Walt Disney Parks, Universal Studios, SeaWorld, Six Flags. They make products tied to all those popular franchises you see there.
So if you've bought a themed keychain or a plush toy at a major park, could have been from them. Sounds like a very specific market.
Yeah.
How are they doing, financially before all this recent news? Well, looking at the numbers from around mid-2025, based on the trailing 12 months data, they were struggling a bit. Revenue was about $4.39 million,
Okay.
which was actually down from the year before. And importantly, they were operating at a net loss of around $3.28 million, and that loss had gotten bigger. EPS was negative.
So a relatively small company, losing money, revenue shrinking, even though they were trying to expand. Sounds like they were in a tough spot.
Yeah, especially compared to, the giant profitable players in that toy and merchandise space.
Definitely.
That context is really important. The financials showed ongoing losses, stark volatility. Their risks included relying heavily on those big entertainment licenses, and of course being sensitive to economic downturns.
But they did have some strengths.
Their strengths were really those partnerships with the big theme parks, and they had recently tried to diversify a little, moving into media content in 2024. But overall picture, yeah, difficult situation.
All right. So that's one piece. A theme park merchandise company struggling, maybe looking for a lifeline or a completely new direction. Now, let's bring in the other major player here from the crypto side, Justin Sun. Who is he and what's his whole philosophy?
Justin Sun is, well, he's a very prominent figure in the blockchain world. He founded Tron,
There's a huge blockchain ecosystem, right?
one of the biggest decentralized ones, yes. And he's also the CEO of BitTorrent.
And he has quite the background protege of Jack Ma, Forbes 30 under 30.
He does, named to those lists in China and Asia early on. And his driving philosophy seems pretty clear. He's a huge advocate for decentralization, especially for the internet itself.
He makes that interesting point about digital versus physical ownership, doesn't he?
He does. He contrasts like owning a physical thing, say, this pen, it's mine. No one can just take it without permission. But online, on platforms like Facebook or Twitter, your digital stuff, even your identity, can theoretically be controlled or even deleted by the platform.
Okay.
Right. So he argues that as more of our lives go digital, heading towards this idea of a metaverse, we need decentralized systems where we actually control our digital assets and identity, just like you control physical cash unless you put it in a bank that might freeze it.
It's a powerful argument about control in the digital age. And that leads him to see blockchain as the future foundation for finance.
Very much so. He points to the Tron network's activity right now. He's mentioned it handles billions, like around $5 billion a day in stablecoin transactions.
Oh, wow.
And he contrasts that, noting it's significantly more volume than PayPal handles. And the average daily transactions this year have been over $20 billion. His ambition is for Tron to become the global standard for settling transactions on-chain.
Sort of a new kind of SWIFT or ACH, but global, faster, cheaper.
That's the goal. A global, efficient, low-fee, fairer alternative to those traditional systems. And he thinks beyond just money, too. He sees assets like art, commodities, pretty much everything of value eventually moving onto the blockchain.
He compares it to how businesses like newspapers had to move online decades ago.
Exactly, that kind of fundamental shift. But he's also expressed willingness to work with existing players, like governments and banks. He points to examples like Visa using USDC.
So it's not necessarily about completely replacing the old system overnight.
It seems he believes well-designed blockchain systems can incorporate things like KYTOML checks, use smart contracts for rules, while still keeping the core benefits of decentralization. His vision includes this metaverse idea, like from Ready Player One, where people spend most of their time online with digital identities, digital assets.
And he sees things like the rise of virtual conferences, maybe accelerated by the pandemic as part of that trend.
Right. Ultimately, his hope seems to be that Tron becomes this foundational financial layer that future generations just use, like we use Swift today, without even thinking about it.
And BitTorrent fits into this how. You mentioned he's CEO there, too.
He acquired BitTorrent, reportedly, because he saw it as the first really practical example of decentralized tech just working better than centralized systems specifically, much faster file transfers. Proof of concept? Maybe.
Okay, so we have SRM Entertainment, small, struggling physical merchandise, and Justin Sun, major crypto figure, huge decentralized vision for finance, identity, the whole digital future. How on earth do these two connect? This is the core of the story, right?
This is where it gets really interesting. The big news dropped on June 16th, 2025. SRM Entertainment announced a major strategic pivot, and it directly involves Tron.
Okay, break it down for us. What's the actual deal?
SRM entered into what's called a securities purchase agreement, an SPA, with a private investor. This is for a $100 million equity investment.
$100 million for SRM. That's huge compared to their revenues.
It is. And the stated purpose for this money is very specific: to kick off a Tron token TRX treasury strategy for the company.
A Tron treasury strategy for a company making theme park toys. That's unexpected, to say the least.
Yeah.
How is this $100 million structured?
Okay, so the mechanics involve SRM issuing 100,000 shares of something called Series B convertible preferred stock. These shares can later be converted into 200 million common shares at 50 cents per share.
Right, preferred stock often comes with conditions like that. What else?
In addition to the stock, they're issuing 220 million warrants.
And warrants give the holder the option to buy more shares later at a fixed price, correct?
That's it. In this case, the option to buy another 220 million common shares, also at 30 cents each. So if those warrants are fully exercised down the line,
Then the total investment balloons, potentially?
potentially up to $210 million. That's how they plan to build this substantial Tron treasury.
Wow. Okay, $100 million up front, maybe $210 million total, all going towards buying Tron tokens. What else is changing at SRM?
Two other really big things. First, the company plans to change its name
To what?
to Tron.
Seriously, just Tron.
That's the plan. And second, Justin Sun himself, the founder of the Tron blockchain, has been named as an advisor to the company.
Okay, so massive crypto treasury. Renaming the company after the blockchain, bringing the founder in as an advisor. This sounds less like a pivot and more like a complete transformation. Or maybe even something like a reverse takeover.
It certainly looks like a full embrace of the Tron ecosystem, a fundamental shift.
What are they planning to do with this big pile of TRX once they have it in their treasury? Just hold it.
Their stated plan is to eventually implement a dividend policy for shareholders. And they intend to fund this dividend after they successfully get a TRX staking program running using those treasury assets.
A dividend paid from staking crypto. That's definitely novel for a public company on Nasdaq.
It really is. It's trying to generate yield directly from the crypto assets and pass that back to shareholders. It's not something you typically see.
And you mentioned this $100 million deal came shortly after a smaller $5 million placement they did.
That's right. They closed a $5 million private placement back on May 27th, just a few weeks before this huge announcement. That $5 million was described as being for, normal stuff, growth initiatives, product development.
Okay, so the scale is just vastly different. $5 million for the existing business, then $100 million plus for a complete crypto reinvention. That contrast tells a story in itself.
It really does.
Now, we talked about SRM's shaky financials before this news. What happened in the market when this Tron plan was announced?
The reaction was, well, immediate and explosive. SRM's stock price surged. It jumped over 221% in pre-market trading on June 16th, the day the news hit.
221%, just like that.
Just like that. And trading volume went through the roof more than 3 times its recent average. You have to remember, this stock was already incredibly volatile over the past year. It had swung from lows near 26 cents way up to over $10 recently.
So, already a wild ride, and this news just added rocket fuel.
Pretty much. And this latest surge seems largely, maybe entirely disconnected from the company's actual business fundamentals, the theme park merchandise business, before this announcement.
Right, it's purely reaction to the Tron news and the potential transformation. Did analysts have anything to say?
There was a shift towards a more bullish sentiment. We saw one report mentioning a buy rating and setting it to $5.50 price target. Though it's possible that analysis was based on earlier catalysts like film tie-ins and might have come out just before the full scale of this Tron deal was public knowledge.
Okay. And what about chatter online, social media?
Oh, it definitely intensified. Lots of speculation, people wondering if there was more news coming, maybe acquisition rumors, but also plenty of warnings about the risks, like potential pump and dump scenarios, precisely because the price action seems so detached from the underlying business performance.
Understandable, given the volatility. Now, there's some other context floating around this story involving some well-known names. Eric Trump, for instance.
Yes, the information we have describes him as a big supporter, a fan of Tron, and considers Justin Sun a great friend and an icon in crypto.
But he's not directly involved in this SRM Tron venture.
He has specifically denied reports suggesting he would be involved in what's described as Tron's public venture, which this SRM deal looks like a step towards.
Okay. And it's noted he is involved in other Trump family crypto projects.
Yes, World Liberty Financial is mentioned, where President Trump reportedly earned a significant sum from a related token sale. And also American Bitcoin, a mining company, where Eric Trump has apparently talked about Bitcoin mining as a global arms race.
We're just noting these connections here as presented in the information, showing the broader landscape where political figures and crypto intersect.
It definitely highlights that increasing overlap between politics and the crypto space these days.
The information also touches on the regulatory side regarding Justin Sun, mentioning a possible thaw with the SEC.
Yeah, it mentions a perceived regulatory thaw, noting a request was made to pause the SEC's case against Sun to allow for settlement discussions.
And relatedly, Sun buying a Trump-themed meme coin was also mentioned in the context. Again, just background details surrounding the main players.
Right, just part of the overall picture.
Okay, so let's try and pull all these threads together now. We have SRM, the small, struggling theme park merchandise company. We have Justin Sun, the major blockchain founder with a huge vision. They connect via this massive investment aimed at building a TRX treasury. SRM plans to rename itself Tron. Justin Sun becomes an advisor. What does this all signify? What's the bigger picture?
Well, first off, it's a very clear, very deliberate attempt to link a traditional but financially weak company with a major, highly liquid blockchain ecosystem. It's not just, adding some Bitcoin to the balance sheet like some companies have done. This is a fundamental strategic realignment.
And for Tron, or Justin Sun, it looks like a potential pathway, maybe an unconventional one, towards having a publicly listed entity in the U.S. market, right? Especially with that name change plan. It sort of resembles a reverse merger mechanism, even if structured as an SPA initially.
That seems like a very plausible interpretation. It also sets up a really interesting, maybe high-profile test case for this specific business model. A public company holding a significant crypto treasury and planning to pay dividends based on staking those assets.
Yeah, if this works, you could see other companies looking at it. If it doesn't, well, that's a lesson too.
Definitely. Everyone will be watching.
Yeah.
It also just starkly highlights this convergence we keep seeing. Entertainment, traditional finance, crypto, blockchain, all mixing in unexpected ways. Companies are clearly searching for new avenues for growth or maybe just survival, and they're getting creative.
But creative often means risky, doesn't it? Especially here.
Absolutely. Given SRM's previous financial state, the stock's wild volatility, this is undeniably a high-risk play. Its success hinges almost entirely on how well that Tron Treasury strategy performs, the future execution, the volatility of TRX itself, and the overall crypto market. Lots of ifs.
It feels like they're betting the entire company on this working out, going from souvenirs to staking dividends.
Yeah.
It's about as drastic a pivot as you can imagine.
It really is a complete overhaul of the company's identity and potential future.
So just to quickly recap this incredible story, SRM Entertainment, a small, loss-making company known for theme park toys, is attempting this radical transformation. They're taking a huge investment to build a Tron token treasury, planning to rename themselves Tron and bringing Justin Sun in as an advisor.
It's this stark contrast, the established, maybe struggling physical goods business merging, in a way, with the incredibly dynamic, high-volume digital world of a major Layer 1 blockchain.
An extremely unusual pairing, reflecting maybe the wild experimentation happening at the intersection of crypto and traditional business.
It certainly is that.